Are you ready for rapid fire?
I am ready for rapid fire.
Let's do it then. So, ESPN has handed out letter grades for all of the first-year college football coaches this season. That, of course, includes Marcus Freeman at Notre Dame, Brian Kelly at LSU. Lincoln Riley is at the head of the class for the letter grades for ESPN with an A. They gave Mike Elko, former Notre Dame defensive coordinator and Texas A&M, of course, an A- for the job he's done at Duke, while Brent Venables gets a D+ down at Oklahoma. So, how do you think I should I give the letter grade they give Marcus Freeman first and then read what they say, or read what they say and then give the letter grade?
I think you should go read what they say first, and then we'll get into some
Okay.
letter grades.
Okay. So here's what they say about Marcus Freeman. The genuine excitement around Freeman's hiring after Brian Kelly's departure masked the fact that he wasn't fully ready for a job of this magnitude. Freeman had only been at Notre Dame for a year. After Freeman's team lost the Fiesta Bowl to Oklahoma State and opened the season with losses to Ohio State and Marshall, I thought back to what Notre Dame athletic director Jack Swarbrick told me in December. There's got to be a learning curve. I have no reason to suspect it's a bigger learning curve or a smaller one in Marcus's case, but there has to be one. Now, that was directly from Jack Swarbrick there. ESPN goes on to say it showed up in various forms during Freeman's 0-3 start, which included the Fiesta Bowl loss and then against Stanford, as Notre Dame was stunned at home by a Stanford team that had lost 11 consecutive games to Power 5 opponents. Marshall and Stanford now 1-7 against FBS opponents not named Notre Dame this season, because Stanford actually beat Arizona State last week. The combination of a young coach who's 36 and a young offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, who's 30, could become a real problem for Notre Dame. So they give Marcus Freeman a D+, D as in dog, D+, and that was the write-up that they gave Marcus Freeman. So here's what they say about Brian Kelly. Kelly's final few Notre Dame teams were machine-like in beating the teams they should, while falling short against most of their elite opponents. His first LSU team has been wildly unpredictable. LSU couldn't have played much worse in its opener, especially on special teams, but it still only lost after failing to make an extra point with no time left. Tigers rallied from, I'll skip that part there. It's not really important to this. Other than special teams, LSU has shown several bright spots and could be a tough squad to beat down the stretch. Kelly's stint ultimately will be judged by whether he wins a national title, which was never going to happen this season. But after a brutal start, Kelly has once again shown his talent for winning and pushing the right personnel buttons. So there's the write-up on Brian Kelly, who gets a B-. Marcus Freeman gets a D+. What do you think about those grades?
I feel like a large thing that they bring up are the Oklahoma State, starting 0-3 essentially, losing to Oklahoma State, losing to Ohio State, and losing to Marshall. Well, I got news for people, that those Oklahoma State and Ohio State, those are both top 10 teams in the country. That's a pretty tough, 1-2 start for any coach, no matter what experience you have. If you're taking over a program after 10 years of experience or no years of experience like Marcus Freeman, I think that's a tough job. And really, it's crazy because only one loss separates Freeman and Kelly right now. Freeman has 3 losses, Kelly has 2 losses, but Freeman's got a D+ and Kelly's got a B-. So I think that this is pretty harsh, to be honest with you. I think Notre Dame has a lot on their schedule that they can prove, with Clemson, USC, and Syracuse. I think there's a lot on the table that can
But
still
these are
bring.
midterm, these are basically mid-season grades, so
Yeah, and
they're
I
going based
still
on the
don't.
body of work already.
I think D+ is a little harsh. I can get down with a C+. I don't think that he's anywhere in the B range right now. I honestly think D+ is a little too harsh in my opinion, and I think that Brian Kelly's grade is pretty spot on, kind of where he's at right now. But for me, I see it as a C, a C+. I just think a D+ is a little too hard. I know losing to I've said it before. I know losing to Marshall and Stanford aren't a great look, and those are things that obviously need to be fixed. But it's still a first-time head coach. It's still the toughest schedule in the country. It's still there's a lot of things that Marcus Freeman has done wrong, but I still like a lot of things that Marcus Freeman has done.
Yeah, I mean, put up a couple comments here while I'm talking, but just some reality numbers. Notre Dame's offense, 84th in red zone scoring, 81st in scoring period, 101st in passing offense, 62nd in pass efficiency. The defense, dead last in the nation, tied with Rutgers in red zone scoring defense. 70th in pass efficiency defense. They actually moved up 19 spots after playing UNLV last week because UNLV couldn't do anything. And also tied for last in the nation with Fresno State and New Mexico State with just 4 turnovers gained this season. So those are a lot of lowly numbers that they've got. So based on performance, I mean, Stymie did make a good point. You are playing a backup quarterback, but even the starting quarterback lost to Marshall. So like each quarterback has a bad loss this season. And that's the problem is you've got 2 bad losses on your resume, Marshall and Stanford at home, and you got 2 pretty good wins on your resume, North Carolina and BYU, one on the road, one in a neutral site out in Las Vegas. So based on what we've seen so far, like if you were just going to, crunch all the numbers and do that, I think that, and we got another comment. We got Mr. 2.0 says he thinks it's fair they've lost to Marshall and Stanford. No reason to grade him higher. And Matt Miller says, don't justify the inexcusable. I'm a Freeman supporter, but he's no better than a D+. Dude has to learn how to lose before he can win. He will get there. That's like if I'm going up, maybe I'm willing to give him a C- because of the wins over North Carolina and BYU. Maybe I'm in that range. I don't think that D+ is unfair though. Like when you look at where they are in the national rankings, so it's not just that they lost to these teams, it's also how they've gone about it and like why this team isn't causing more turnovers, why they can't tackle better in some crucial situations, get off the field more consistently on third down. And like the fact that not only do you lose to Marshall, you've got a lead against Marshall in the fourth quarter and you give up a 95-yard touchdown drive for them to take the lead when you had a chance to kill them on third down and they convert a 3rd and long. BYU converts a 3rd and long. There's just too many crippling plays. John Christophic says he deserves a C. Like I said, C- is about as high as I can go, which is like, average and just a little bit down. I guess they are 4-3, so technically that's above average. So maybe I'm willing to bump him up to C-. As for Brian Kelly, like they've got LSU next week, and they've already won 6 games this season. They've got a good chance after they play Alabama. They've got Arkansas, and I think they finish off with Vandy, and they've got an FCS team there in between. They've got a really good chance at finishing the season with 9 wins after that. He took over a 6-7 team last year. So I've got no problem with this B-. Freeman, I think, is definitely in that D+, C- range, and he's got to show that there are improvements, that there are, definite improvements the rest of this season, I think, to be able to move out of that spot.
Yeah, I think largely what this boils down to is I think there was an expectation of what success should look like this year for Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame, and what that's defined to be. But for me, it's just defined a little bit differently. I see both sides, but I still feel like there's still a lot of growing. There's still a lot of transition. You're asking, a new defensive system, a new defensive coordinator. I would say that the number one disappointing thing, and obviously everyone talks about it, is the offense. The offense has to be consistently better. And I think that is largely what is weighing them down the most right now, because they just don't seem to have consistent success, no matter if it's passing or rushing. And they can look great one week and then look like, a completely different team the next week. So that has to be the number one thing that has to be addressed, is consistently coming out as the same team every week. And that falls on the head coach.
If we're going to be fair to Marcus Freeman on that front, if the offense is the biggest problem, and it is, the consistency of the offense, as we all know, and as many people have pointed out here over the last couple of weeks, it was an offensive coordinator that, not that he was forced to have, but it was an arranged marriage, right? Like Jack Swarbrick kept Tommy Rees around, and that was part of the deal. If you want to become a head coach, Tommy Rees is going to be the offensive coordinator, so that was part of the deal. So that's not all on him, I guess I'm saying, especially as a first-time head coach.
Exactly. And if I would say best bright spot right now is Notre Dame special teams. I like they've done a lot on punts.
And that was completely Freeman's hire, got Mason to come over from Cincinnati.
People don't think about it, but that's a third phase. That's an equal third of the game. They've created a lot of points off of block punts. They do well in, punt. They seem to be doing better in punt return, kickoff return, those sort of things. But definitely their punt coverage and punt blocks. Obviously against UNLV, against BYU, they blocked a punt. And I feel like they blocked another one, but it's just not coming to me right now. But that's a bright spot in my opinion. A phase in the game that often
I can't think of the other one off the top of my head either.
There's games it's often overlooked, but it sounds like a small win, but they do well on special teams, and it's really funny that special teams is LSU's worst thing because that was like the only coach that Brian Kelly took with them from Notre Dame to LSU.
Very funny. Fill in the blank. It's blank that the first college football playoff rankings of the season come out next week.
It's stupid. I hate these early, college rankings. All it is just another thing to get people to watch. To me, it's a justification for, how things play out. You give teams rankings based on, it seems like they set up these rankings based off of, it giving the justification to whatever team makes it to the end, right? Like these teams get ranked high and then it's like, well, then another team kind of dominates them. You're like, oh, were they really that good? And it's like, no, they just created these rankings to get the matchups that they want, to get the, the 10 versus 2 and all the ratings and all that. To me, it doesn't matter. I feel like the rankings should come out with like when there's 2 weeks left in the season and then you still have, your conference championships. I hate that these premature polls come out because there's still so much stuff left in the season, in my opinion. All the big games are towards the back end of the schedule.
Yeah, as John says, exciting. And if you're Notre Dame, it's usually exciting. Like it used to be like Christmas, like you're waiting for the rankings because, Notre Dame was in them the last 4 years. We were kind of eagerly waiting to see where they were, like I said, like Christmas morning, waiting to see where they were going to be ranked. But as Stymie is saying, non-issue this year. This is like being at one of those Christmas gift exchange parties and everyone else is getting gifts but you. Like you're sitting there, and everyone else is exchanging the socks or the pocket holders or, whatever they happen to be. And you're over there, like with your hands out and you've got nothing. And that's where Notre Dame is right now. It's just a little bit more blah this year from our end. There's just nothing. Notre Dame's not going to be involved in it. So it's kind of hard to get that excited about it, but be sure to join in every Tuesday because we're going to have the college football playoff reveal shows here on Irish Breakdown. That'll be coming up, but it's just, and like you're saying, do you need it this early? I don't mind having it this early because it does kind of create some excitement. It lets teams see where they are, kind of figure out what you have to do, and you start to see the jockeying, who's going to overtake who, and all that kind of stuff. Like, is there going to be a team lurking there in the mid-teens when the first one comes out, or down around 12 or so that might make a move? I'm going to be really curious to see how all this shakes out. A lot of good unbeaten teams sitting up there at the top of the rankings right now, and there's going to be a lot of movement before this is all said and done. Fill in the blank on this next one. It's blank that your boy Russell Wilson reportedly worked out and stretched for 4 of the 8 hours on the Denver Broncos flight from Denver to London. He said he was doing high knees in the aisles while the rest of the team was sleeping.
It's corny as hell. Like, I'm convinced that Russell Wilson just like finessed everyone this year. He said, I'm going to take this big contract with Denver. I'm getting into the mid 30s here. I'll guarantee, this contract. And then it's just like, I don't even know if he's like, obviously he cares about football, but it feels like his personal brand and his getting his face out there has been more of a concern this year than playing football, in my opinion. And that's got to be, so frustrating as a Denver fan because you keep missing on quarterbacks, then you pay Russell Wilson a crap ton of money, and he just comes out with a cringy after cringy, something new every week, whether it's his memes or his his little TikTok videos or telling reporters that he worked out on a plane for 4 hours. It's just like, come on, man. Just like I at this point, he knows what people say about him. So it's just, I think he's in it for the publicity. I think there's no such thing as bad publicity for Russell Wilson. So for me, it's corny, but I just think he's more concerned about his brand this year than he is actually playing football.
Yeah, I just don't know what Russell Wilson has become. Like you said, like the lengths that he'll go to, because they started reporting this as, well, a source says this happened, but then the next thing you know, it was
He
actually
confirmed
Russell
it.
Wilson. Yeah, and he's talking about it. He's quoted talking about it. How annoying would it be if you're on a 8-hour
Oh
flight,
my
you're a
gosh.
professional football player, and some jackwagon is standing next to you in the aisle or a couple rows behind you in the aisle, and he's doing the high knees, and he's like out there doing his.
I wonder if he
his
went through his fake passes on the plane too. If he was dropping back and
right. He's like
looking off the
doing
safety and throwing it to the other side. Like
right.
he needs to be, considering how bad he's been this year.
He's doing the Dak Prescott, hip throws and all that stuff out there. It was like that. There was that Seinfeld episode where Kramer goes to Hollywood and he's auditioning for the fitness video, and he's like all arms and limbs, and he's kicking and pumping and doing all this. It's like Mr. Aerobics in the aisle out there. Russell Wilson. It's just like, come on, man. You're supposed to be a professional. People talk about you as a Hall of Famer. It's a little OTT for me. I can't believe it's come to this.
Too much. I like John B's comment here. Just looks terrible. He looks like a joker. He's gonna take that back to the bank. And that's like, his brand is lame too. Like, he's just a lame guy, so corny at everything he does. But like, I get, like, whatever. Like, I'm not trying to down the man. If he's genuinely happy, then whatever. But to the public, he looks like a fool, and I feel like he has to know that.
I don't know. I don't know if he knows that. Maybe that's part of the problem.
Yeah, like, at what point does someone get up on the plane and be like, dude, just sit down. We're all trying to get some sleep as we're flying to London right now.
I know. Exactly. Just go sit there and watch your movie, have a drink, do something. So speaking of the Broncos, they're playing the Jaguars in London, and it is exclusively on ESPN Plus. I don't know how many people knew that. It's on ESPN Plus only this Sunday morning. Does that make you more likely or less likely to watch the game?
Extremely less likely. I've actually been watching some of these early games because it's like, oh, I got a nice little Sunday wake up here, watch a little, London game, roll into the 1 o'clock games, roll into the 4 o'clock games, run into this, the Sunday night game. It's just a continuous kind of marathon. It seems like when you have the London games, and it's just fun. Like, I don't mind them, but when you put it on, some, like, this is like the huge problem. You're already, doing something that people are kind of 50-50 on. They're like, do we need to be doing these London games? And then you put it on ESPN Plus, and not everyone can watch it. So it's like, you're like, have maybe like 25% viewership at that rate, compared to what you would get on a regular, NFL Sunday game. So I'm just less likely. I don't have the subscription. I'm not going to pay for the subscription just for this game, but I would turn the game on if it was just on, how it regularly is.
I think I'm less likely because I've tried to, like, I don't know if you've tried this, like with the adapters and stuff like that, connect my phone to the TV, but the ESPN Plus doesn't seem to. It's like ESPN Plus, they don't want you
Amazon
adapting
does
to your
that.
TV.
Amazon Prime does that. You can't stream to the TV. You can only watch on your phone or tablet.
Yeah.
And it's extremely annoying.
So I am less likely. I've not been big. Like, most of the time I have forgotten that these London games have been on. And I mean, this is a forgettable game to begin with. One, you've got the Jaguars, and then two, you've got the Russell Wilson circus show coming to town, and they're horrible. And I've got to tell you, because I have never liked the Broncos in my life, and there are other reasons I like them even less right now. And it is hysterical for me to see this Russell Wilson trade and all the hope that Broncos fans got and what this has turned into right now. So I am less.
The Seahawks are better with Geno Smith. Just let that marinate for you a little bit.
They are. They are.
Geno Smith is a better quarterback in 2022 than Russell Wilson.
He is. All right, so Tom Brady and the Buccaneers are 3-4 after a loss to Carolina last week. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are 3-4 with 3 straight losses, including one to the Commanders. LeBron James and the Lakers are 0-4 after falling to Denver. So which of those 3 grizzled veterans are you most willing to say right now is done?
This is a tough question because there's a lot of, I don't know if you saw this, but a report came out today that Giselle has given Tom Brady an ultimatum and said that it is either football or divorce, and you make the decision.
So
And
she's still willing to stick
she's
with him
still
if he
willing
gives
to
it up.
stick with, if he's willing to give, she's giving him an
Wow.
ultimatum, and that came out today. I think so. To me, it's Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. I think Tom Brady got himself into a bad situation this year. I think he thought this team was going to be a lot better than what they were. They've dealt with a lot of injuries this season, which you can't, forecast coming up. I think he's done this year because I think he loves his family, he loves his children, he loves his wife. I don't think he wants to throw all of those things away. And I feel like on the other side, Aaron Rodgers just looks like he doesn't even want to be out there. Like I think he just wants to go back to doing his ayahuasca and all that crazy stuff and be on different podcasts. Aaron Rodgers genuinely looks like he is not having fun. Like he does not want to be out there. He's done with it. He's lost Devontae Adams. He's got no one to throw the
Criticizing
ball
the
to.
offense.
He's got nothing going for him. And so for me, it's either Tom Brady or Aaron Rodgers. And I think it's both of them. I think they're both done after this year. I think LeBron is going to stick around until his kid makes the NBA. So he's got a few more cracks at it. To me, it comes down to those 2 quarterbacks. And honestly, I'm going to go with Aaron Rodgers because I just think he looks miserable out there. And I think Tom is dumb enough to still come back another year if he really wanted to.
Tom Brady, like everything he's done, leading up to his departure from New England and since New England was, going his own way and being his own guy, and he wanted to get to call more shots and all that kind of stuff. And whatever back and forth tug of war there was, even with Bruce Arians after they won the Super Bowl, like they got rid of Bruce Arians. They got a new head coach. He was going to go to Miami. He didn't get to go to Miami. So now here he is back in Tampa Bay. He goes to Robert Kraft's wedding on a Friday, 2 days before a game. All these different
taking
things.
Wednesday off.
Yeah, and then you're yelling at your offensive line. Well, that stuff works when you're actually performing as well. But you can't even beat Carolina last week. He's a great quarterback, but he's got all the control that he's always wanted. And the bottom line is, Father Time catches everybody. This is athletics. It doesn't matter when, it catches everybody at some point. This guy is 45 years old. So, hats off to him for everything that he's done. But the wheels fell off even pretty quickly for Peyton Manning. He was lucky he had a great defense to bail him out.
That carried him through that last year.
That's exactly right. His legs were gone. The defense bailed him out. They won a Super Bowl. Tom Brady doesn't have that. There's just nothing. It just doesn't look like there's much left right now. So I would go in that same order. I would go Brady, Rodgers, and then LeBron afterwards. I mean, there's still a lot of season left for the Lakers, obviously. They're just getting started. But when you're 38 years old and you get off to that kind of start in Los Angeles, it never looks good either.
Yeah. They're the worst shooting 3% team right now of ever. Like over the first 4 games, this is the worst 3-point shooting team ever. It's kind of insane. I think that ownership is trying to stick it to LeBron and say, you know what, you made these decisions. You're going to have to stick through it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's kind of what they did last year when he, because again, like you talk about power and control and getting to call the shots. That's what he did. He was calling shots last year. He assembled the roster, and it's like, well, you made your bed. Now you got to lie in it, and it seems like they're sticking with that. I saw MLB Network ask this question the other day, and I wanted to ask you this. Which team's postseason record over the last decade would you rather have? You can have the Yankees, who have 8 postseason appearances, but no World Series appearances. So they've been in the postseason 8 times, haven't got to the World Series. Or you can have the Royals, who have just 2 postseason appearances, but both times they went to the World Series. And, of course, they won the second one in 2015. So over the last decade, whose would you rather have?
As a good friend of mine used to say, if you're not first, you're last. To me, it doesn't matter. Like, you can go to the postseason 10 straight years, but if you don't win the World Series, what's the point? There's no participation trophy for, almost winning the
Especially
World
if you're the
Series.
Yankees.
Right. Like, you have the highest payroll. You are the Yankees. You have all of these World Series. For me, I'll take the World Series every time. I don't even care if I go to one postseason in that decade, as long as I win the World Series. It really doesn't matter. Postseason appearances don't matter. Winning it all matters. And so I'm going to take that Royals any day of the week. And they've been bad for so long. And I think that's just, it has to be the answer, because if you're playing for appearances, and what are you really playing for? You play to win it all. And so I'm going to take that world title every day of the week.
That's absolutely right. And as a Royals fan myself, it's like, I remember my buddy Randy and I, when we were in college at University of Kansas, Kansas City, it's only like 45 minutes over the ballpark, something like that, 45, 50 minutes. So we would go to Royals games all summer long. And we'd be sitting there, and this is like, early to mid 90s, and we're looking at each other like they were trying to be competitive, but it was tapering off a little bit every year. And we're like, do you think these guys will ever even be in the playoffs again? And we were just like, probably not. But, lo and behold, about 20 years later, there it came. They won, back-to-back World Series. It's amazing. And, they don't have a competitive team anymore. But I can live with the fact that, one, I got to go to one of those World Series games, which was awesome. And two, the fact that they won the World Series in 2015. So I would make that deal with the devil any day. I would trade a championship and spend the next 30 years out of the postseason, in exchange for that championship.
I'll
So
take a
I would
championship
take
every 10 years. That's fine
for
with me.
sure.
If you guarantee me one every 10 years, that's probably 7, 8 championships I'll see in my lifetime.
Absolutely. Last question tonight. Fill in the blank. It's blank that adult entertainment company Cam Soda is sending truckloads of 55-gallon barrels of lube to Philadelphia so they can grease the street light poles in case the Phillies win the World Series.
It's hilarious that this adult entertainment company is sending off all this lube so that, they know what Philly's like. They know how crazy those fans are. And I was talking about this today with one of my coworkers. Someone said that they tried to do this after they won the NLCS. I don't know how accurate that is. I don't think that that's true, because why would you try it again? Plus, like, you can't climb a greasy pole. Like, it's kind of physically impossible. You'd have to carry around rags with you and just wipe off the poles kind of as you go. But it's also ingenious at the same time that, this adult company is just sending off lube. Like, that's a ton of lube. And I'm sure it's not, the city of Philadelphia isn't just getting that for free, right? So it's smart, it's ingenious, and it's all funny at the same time. So I want to see how it goes. Who's gonna be the first one to try to climb up the pole and just slip down and eat it? Because it's not gonna feel good.
It's hilarious. They need to do a Boogie Nights party or something outside the ballpark, for that matter. It's like, what publicity for Cam Soda, who I've never heard of before. They're going to lube up the pole. They should do this. They should send like a 55-gallon barrel of this like to every football team in the country, like all the college football teams in the country, in case there's an upset, so everyone can have their uprights
Yeah,
lubed
Tennessee,
all the time. So
they're
like if Tennessee didn't want to, have to crowdfund, to go find goalposts after they beat Alabama, they just could have had some Cam Soda laying around and have those poles greased up.
it is very comical. I'm gonna be like, that's a lot of effort too. Who's going out there and applying said lube to all these poles? It's gonna be interesting.
It is. Interesting is a word for it. Well, the World Series does start tomorrow. Do you want to make a World Series pick real quick before, like, who and how many games?
I'll give my World Series pick, and I'll give my Notre Dame Syracuse pick with
Okay.
a score prediction as well. So,
Okay.
first of all, I think the Phillies win in 6. That's my first one. It's either Phillies in 6 or Houston in 7, but I'm going to take Phillies in 6.
Ooh.
But yeah, so I got
Bold pick.
Phillies in 6 or Houston in 7, but I feel more confident about Phillies in 6. They're hot right now. I think they're the team playing with more passion. They obviously Houston is this is nothing new for Houston. They've been, in and out of these, CS and World Series appearances, quite frequently in the last 5 to 7 years. I think the Phillies really got something to play for. They haven't won it in a while. Since 2008. They had Hamels, Victorino, Utley, Ryan Howard.
Yeah.
That was a solid team,
Jimmy
but
Rollins.
It's just been 20 years. I think that they're due for it, and they know that. I think that the city of Philadelphia wants it. They want it. I want it for Bryce Harper. It had to be tough leaving the Nationals and then seeing them win that World Series. So I got the Phillies. And then when it comes to Notre Dame and Syracuse, I have Notre Dame winning in a very close game. I think it comes down to the last possession, and I'm going to give them a 23-17 win. I think that is the final score, 23-17.
Okay.
And Notre Dame barely squeaks out one. I think both teams are going to try to run the ball a lot. It's going to be, it's going to be reverse of what we saw last week. That UNLV first quarter took forever. Notre Dame had 10 drives in the first half against UNLV. They usually average 10 drives the whole game, but I think both teams will eat up the clock. Low scoring, 23-17, Notre Dame.
All right, sounds good. I'll just make mine short and quick. I'm not going to make my Notre Dame pick, of course. We publish them on Fridays, and then on the show Saturday morning, Vince and I give our predictions. But World Series, I think the luck is going to run out for Philadelphia. Houston is just too good. Both of them are going to be rested up since they both clinched on Sunday, and they've had 4 days in between. So everyone's pitching is going to be set up, rested up, and ready to go. I just think this Cinderella story is going to end for Philadelphia because Houston is just too good, and I've got the Astros in 5. I think it's going to be a relatively short series.
Wow.
Not a sweep. I'll give the Phillies 1.
Everyone write this down. There's no way the Astros win in 5.
All right.
There's no way.
We'll see. I know you don't want them to win in 5, but we'll see. We'll see next week how this series starts off this weekend. Game 1's tomorrow night. All right, Jess. As Brian wants to know, who beat the Phillies in 2009? Okay,
the Yankees.
Yes, the last Yankees championship. Yes,
the Yankees.
We know. All right, Jess, great stuff. I will talk to you later. Have a good weekend.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me.